in the very beginning, let's say in China and Tibet, each village had somebody in the position of the healer, whose job it was to keep the village people well. And so they did that through energy work. They did that through teas, through tinctures, through botany, herbology, through food. So they had their own natural medicines. But the important thing is that their job was to keep the village people well. And so essentially they're the beginnings of being, they're early doctors. So their job was preventative care. And I'm repeating it because it's important to recognize how far we've come from the origins of the healing arts, where the purpose was to keep the whole person and the whole village well. Whereas now we treat what's sick, what's not working. We've become toddlers, we've become pre-K. So healing, it was very sophisticated then in its natural state. And so as they applied the energy work, I gave you a little taste when I asked you to focus on the space between your palms. And so that's what they would do. They would focus all of their attention on their fingertips and on their subtle energy body. And then they would be able to sense how the energy is flowing in the person that they're working with. And so they would be able to detect that by listening, by using all of their senses, they would be able to detect when the energy wasn't flowing correctly. And so that's essentially what we're doing. So we're practicing that ancient muscle. We're practicing that ancient art of paying attention. And so we started in our meditation by simply paying attention to the breath, because that's really our first healing tool. It's the first thing that we do when we're born into this physical life. It's the first thing that gives us this physical life after birth. Now, life existed in utero because the heart's beating, the cells are growing and multiplying, and limbs are being created, right? So, and the baby can listen. There's listening. However, once the baby is born, the breath is the first thing that it does to affirm this physical life to be out here in this world. It's a reality change. And then it's the last thing that we do when we exit stage left in this life. So the first thing we do, just as a sweet practice, was to pay attention to your breath. That is your first healing tool. And that's what a practitioner does. The practitioner will center themselves, ground themselves through that attention of the breath, paying attention. And then through that attention, they're starting to intuit and sense and see and hear and feel how the energy is flowing through their own physical nature, which then is in relationship to the person that they're working with. And so in our self-care and our self-practice, you're in relationship with you. So you're paying attention to what it feels like. Just simply, we just did it in a sweet way. You're paying attention to what it feels like from your hand's point of view to hold the body in this way. And then shift your perspective to feel what it feels like from your body's point of view to receive the touch in that way. Right? And then we were focusing on letting go of the holding. And that's important because for the energy to flow optimally and do its work, which is to activate the body's inherent wisdom to balance and heal, it can do that well when the channels are open, not pinched without tension and stress. So I'm always asking my students and clients to just pay attention to where the body wants to hold and just keep dropping the holding. And because I've said this before, but the body's holding is directly related to thinking. So what the body is doing is preparing to either take action based on the mind, or it's preparing to defend and keep itself safe. And so that's why it holds. And it could be holding years and years and years of stuff, which is how we get, aches and pains and blow out our discs and get arthritis and so on. Because that energy hasn't been able to move through, it gets stuck. So really that's what we're doing. I gave you a deep dive. And so the Qi is the same word as in Tai Chi. It's the same, Qi in the Qi. It's the same, so it's just the life force. It's the energy that tells the heart to beat, that has the body breathing. The ray points to that power that created the heart and the body and all of this in the first place. Just to give you a sense of what it's holding in its name. Yeah. And so the self-care, why we start with the self-care, is because that's you being your own healer. You being the healer of your village. So you giving yourself the grace of attention and preventative care. And so when we teach the first level of Reiki, that's really all about self-care, practicing on yourself. And then in Reiki level 2, we work more on your subtle bodies, so we're doing mental emotional healing, and we can practice distance healing, healing through time and through geography. And then the level 3 is just practicing becoming more attuned to the subtle bodies and your psychic senses, your subtle senses, your clair senses, and so on, to then go into mastership if that's your path. That's essentially how it goes. And what's different in the Reiki tradition with the Reiki healing art compared to other healing arts is that it also includes some symbols that have been passed down. And these symbols have inherent wisdom and healing power to them. That transcends our rational minds. So we use those too. And then just from the Western mind's point of view, to give it a context, studies show that touch is healing. So many studies show that that's how we thrive. We thrive through physically connecting. So even if we just start and stop there, even if we just go, okay, so we notice that giving somebody a hug or applying light touch calms the nervous system, brings a sense of comfort, and that comfort brings relaxation. Great, let's start and end there. We don't have to get all crazy.